This is the USA Emergency Broadcast Network, your source for reliable disaster preparedness information.
The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily the views of this station, its management, sponsors, or other hosts. If you have any comments or suggestions about this program, please contact us at radio@usaebn.org. That's radio@usaebn.org.
Welcome to a new Zeta report here on USA Emergency Broadcasting Network. We air this episode live first Mondays of every month. It's a combination or a partnership with ZetaTalk.com and USA EBN. I'd like to welcome back to the show Nancy Leader from Zeta Talk. Nancy, are you there?
I sure am, ready to go. So, folks, we have a really good show tonight, and one of them is, one subject is the eclipse. We can't tell you what's going to happen on the 21st because it's you don't inform. There's a cover-up over Nibiru, and you don't inform the cover-up what you're going to do if you're the administrative force in the universe, and i.e. the Council of Worlds and all those benign aliens that work for the Council. You don't say, oh, here's what we're going to do, because then the establishment prepares for that and comes out with their excuses ahead of time or their games. So we don't know. But what we are going to do is review about a dozen different eclipses that happened since 2003 where Nibiru was in the area and what happened, what was revealed and not revealed, because there is this thing called the element of doubt where in order to keep people from panicking, the Council of Worlds has said we have to give those people who are really frail, faint of heart, might even go insane, or run screaming down the streets or whatever, slash throats or whatever. We just give them something to cling to, an excuse. So there's always a built-in excuse. Oh, no, that's just normal weather. Oh, no, that, that they can cling to. So the element of doubt has to be in there for the faint of heart. Meanwhile, proof of Nibiru's presence has to be in there for those with eyes to see. And it happens in various ways, or has happened in various ways. And in addition to that, Andrea and I are discuss the Snake Man discovery, the mummies found in Peru. This is not just photos. This is dissection by experts from around the world. Wait until you hear. So we've got a couple really good subjects to cover. So before we get into that, let me just say the standard disclaimer. In partnership with USA EBN, Zeta Talk and the Zeta Report will be discussing the challenges of living on a planet beset with change, rising seas, increasing earthquakes, and volcanic activity, weather gone wild, and the worry of what to do in a worst-case scenario. We will also inject Zeta Talk prophecy on what is coming next and advice on readiness plans and safe locations. Whenever Zeta Talk is quoted, please remember that prophecy is not fact. It is opinion. It only becomes fact when it happens. The Zetas are remarkably accurate but have been wrong on occasion. Bear that in mind. For more information on this subject, please visit ZetaTalk.com or the Zeta Report on YouTube. And any questions from the chat or issues raised in the chat will be addressed toward the end of our hour after the main feature has been presented. So I was just on Drudge Report checking the latest, and they say, the states in the path of the eclipse coming on the 21st are anticipating, they're treating it like the apocalypse. Why? Because of tourism. These are not heavily populated states. They are having to put up porta potties, bring in water. The hotels are overwhelmed because so many people are coming into the path. CBS is saying, I was CBS local out of Philadelphia, first coast-to-coast solar eclipse in 99 years. The eclipse's path of totality is a 70-mile wide lane that will cut across 12 states from Oregon to South Carolina, straight line, coast to coast. It's very impressive. So, boy, this is being billed as the eclipse of the whatever century at least.
Yeah.
You know, and knowing that the moon is out of place, the moon's orbit has been tilted since 2003 or 4. the Earth is in a wobble, pushing. Sunrise here in Wisconsin is coming up. Half an hour late. I have a woman who records this every morning dutifully, and it's where it's expected, the azimuth and the time, and it's late. And people have noticed this, or it's too light at dusk for hours, even past the time the sun goes down, and the wobble is creating. So how could it possibly be that the moon would be exactly over the sun? Well, it can happen because the moon can be pushed around and the wobble can be slowed. And if you think the Council of Worlds has trouble with it, they reach over like they're handling an orange saying, I mean, this is piece of cake for them, moving planets around. Okay. And here we go with our subject, in which I've got a lot of photos. And when I put this on the YouTube tomorrow, you can see the photos in addition to Andrea and I chatting away. Another solar eclipse is, anticipated on August 21st, crossing over the central U.S. and visible by millions. They said 12 million live in the path, but another, 10 million are going to come into the path. That's not a huge populace, but imagine the cameras that are going to be running, right? This is not going to be swept under the carpet, anything that appears, but what's going to happen? I don't know. Here we go. What can the public expect? Since Nibiru is visible near the sun and the moon's orbit is very tilted, will this become the coup de grace where the public learns that Nibiru does indeed exist? Has occurred during past eclipses. In the opinion of the Zetas, the element of doubt was maintained so the faint of heart would not be forced to deal with Nibiru before open discussion on safe locations and safety measures had been in the media. But for those with eyes to see, there was evidence. Yes, indeed, the big cover-up, the problem with that is not only are you living on coastlines where the tides are going to come in and sweep you out, etc., are you going to find your grid goes down, food distribution is non-existent, and you should have been gardening and having free-range chickens, etc., even if you're living in cities, but none of that is in place because the media is well in hand, the elite are running things. Oh, no, they're killing any astronomer that tries to mention it, and it's becoming more visible. The wobble is becoming more obvious, but we still don't have this discussed in the major media. Yes, folks, Nibiru is real, and you got to have free-range chickens and get out of the coastlines and go live with Uncle Bob and learn how to garden, and they're not doing that, because they want you paying your bills. The banks want to survive. And mainly the elite do not want your panic, your messy panic, until they get away to their enclaves at the last minute. That movie 2012, when they said, when are we going to tell the people? And the guy who's so establishment says, when we're all on the boat, then we'll tell people. In other words, they count, and the common man does not. During the May 31st, 2003 eclipse, just after Nibiru had arrived in the inner solar system per Zeta Talk tracking teams on 3 continents, and boy, we've got that documented up the kazoo on the Zeta Talk website, believe me. Nibiru was spotted to the right of the sun. This is documented on the Zeta Talk website. Take the Zeta Talk archives, and on the main menu across the top, take the drop-down on that to the Planet X images. And there you'll find all about, how for 3 years, 2001, 2, and 3, on 3 continents, a team of observers went to observatories, took CCD images, matched it against star charts. We tracked it in, according to the Zeta Talk coordinates. This is a fact. One of the search team members, Steve Hava, stated of the May 31st, 2003 eclipse, and I quote, "There has been a number of images of the eclipse showing a round, darkish object in front of the sun next to the moon." Well, that was a heads up to the people that, play games. They said, well, we got to watch these eclipses. They can show too much. Now we move to November 8th, 2003. There was a lunar eclipse. It was noted that a total eclipse never occurred and a secondary source of light was evident. This also occurred during the October 27th, 2004 lunar eclipse. Quoting message board comments, and I quote, "Here in London, it's 1:20 a.m., which should be the totality, yet I can still see a thin crescent of full moonlight. Yes, it's bright. It's a brighter crescent on the lower left. I thought totality would mean 100%, and clearly someone saw that thin slither at the side, then at the bottom." And then another one says, "I observed the lunar eclipse with my telescope and was noting times with a nuclear clock. I observed on the east coast of the United States, and the lunar eclipse never reached totality. This is the third total lunar eclipse that I have observed, and there is no question about it. Totality was not reached. I estimated that it only reached 95% of totality," and from another guy. "The illumination on the lower limb shows a lack of totality. I have observed total lunar eclipses before, and during totality, the entire disk is dark with zero illumination. I'm telling you, on a crystal clear night here in South Florida, the shadow progression was from the top towards straight bottom and now reversing straight up to the top." And, of course, the shadow progression was predicted to be something different. Okay, so those are a couple of eclipses, and people with eyes to see noticed something. During a dual lunar eclipse in April of 2005, the fact that the moon was pushed into position so the element of doubt could be maintained was actually recorded. Prior to the April 8th lunar eclipse, the moon first lifted too far north in this pattern, then suddenly south by April 26, 2005, returning to the pattern it had assumed before the eclipses. Now, people were noticing that the moon, the face would tilt, for instance. It's supposed to tilt 5 degrees over the night. If you're staring at the moon from, the time you can see it at night till you can't, the face tilts 5 degrees. Well, the face got up to tilting 90 degrees. And why? Because the tilt, like a hat on the head, too far over one ear, too high up over the other, instead of kind of pretty well balanced between the ears. That's what the moon was in causing the face to rotate like that. And it wouldn't be in the right place. People would say, "My grandma said the moon never shone in that window, and now it does," that kind of thing. Okay, quoting. This was for April 2005. From Texas on April 11th. "The moon is actually north to my location, way too far north. I am at 46.45 latitude. According to my orrery, moon should be at least 22.51 latitude over Texas." From Colorado on April 26th. "Something is wrong with the moon. The moon has appeared messed up for 2 years now. This is the most egg-shaped I've ever seen it, barely creeping high into the sky. It is back in the south, just like last summer. Much debate rang out here on whether the moon should stay in the south skies all month here in Colorado during the summer. It's in the southern skies. Rosen will set there." El Paso, April 25th. At 23:30 hours Mountain Daily Time, at azimuth 130, altitude 40, there hangs a full moon with Tycho at 5 o'clock and Geminus at 12 o'clock, and just the bottom arc visible. Beautiful moon, shouting loudly, "Look at me." I mean, people were observing this. This is specific information they are providing, which you can compare against where the moon is supposed to be. But most people, especially the ones that wander around in cities, they don't, "Oh, there's a full moon, I guess so." They don't look up. They don't observe the constellations. People out in the country, farmers, or, people who have noticed and are alarmed and are trying to figure out why people aren't being told the truth. I mean, something like this should be on the news, but no. Okay, during the March 29th, 2006 solar eclipse, photos displayed by the establishment sites had such a darkened background that any evidence of Nibiru was suppressed. Not a single star was evident in the darkened skies. Now, Andrew, you were just mentioning that you saw an article about the upcoming eclipse where they're saying you will be able to see planets and stars in the background, right?
Absolutely. A lot of the astronomers, like the big media stations, like you said, CBS and CNN, they're doing the hype for the Great American Solar Eclipse. It's the eclipse of the century. All kinds of hype around this. And one of the things that struck me is the scientific information about the eclipse and what happens with the corona and how they're going to study the corona, which is the outside layer of the fire of the sun and why it's hotter than the surface. But in that same sentence or in that same breath, they would say, and then during totality, you will be able to see planets and stars more brightly. And then I saw another report, same thing, where it's a different scientist saying during the totality we'll be able to observe the corona and also other planets and stars more brightly. And I said, that's almost the exact same statement, and I've never heard that about solar eclipses before. Always just you could see stars better. That's always, I'm just, that struck me as odd. We were talking about planets, and then, NASA started talking about well, maybe we'll see something.
I'll tell you why. I just went to SkyMap and take a look at where the sun and other planets are going to be on August 21st.
Oh.
Guess where Mars is? You know how we always say that you want to see Nibiru? You look at the sun with a filter, and it's at the 4 o'clock position to the sun if you're in the northern hemisphere. Well, this, of course, is northern hemisphere. Well, guess where Mars is going to be? At the 4 o'clock position to the sun. It's going to be at the lower right-hand side, right around the 4 o'clock position. So anyone who sees something reddish in that area, it's going to be, that's just Mars.
Oh, it's just Mars.
This is Mars. So they're getting ready. They're getting ready for that. And there was another article that I saw also that was saying, the corona is always visible because the sun is. It was a really strange article. Like, we have just discovered that the sun is actually larger than we thought, and you can see the corona around the sides of the moon. Well, this is the first eclipse from the beginning of time. What? You've just discovered that?
Right.
But they're putting this out in headlines because anything that shows up that is, the brilliant moon swirls and the tail and all the rest of that stuff that goes on is between the sun and ourselves. They're going to claim that, that's just the corona. And they've got their excuses lined up. So I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But so far, what have we had? We've had, they in one of them they made these are photos released by the establishment that had it so dark you couldn't see any stars in the background. Now they're gearing up to where they're going to show something different, or the moon will get pushed into a location, but there'll be something as I mentioned, where the totality isn't 100%, or where the light disappears and where it appears again. It's not right, top to bottom, left to right, or whatever. Okay. Then we have the July. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, what I noticed too with these articles is a lot of chatter, like you said, a lot of chatter about the corona and how it's hotter, and then they're going to study it really hardcore this time. They've got telescopes pre-positioned in different places around the globe, all focused on that time where they can catch all this information about the corona. I'm like, is this the first eclipse you guys covered? I mean, it's like, it's not the first.
It's new.
No, yeah.
Well, so wouldn't it be weird. Great if the wobble was such that it didn't even go down that path where everybody's sitting and waiting? Yeah, right. And it's like 300 miles off to the south or to the north.
You want to talk about a mad scramble? Yeah, there's the apocalypse.
Yeah,
everybody
then it would be,
shadow.
Gee, what happened? Gee, what happened?
I don't know.
Well, the sun's corona was just so intense.
Okay.
But we can hope. But I'm not expecting much because of what happened in the past, and we're just getting started here. Historically, during the July 11th, 2010 solar eclipse, matters escalated. The eclipse was visible across the South Seas, which is mostly open ocean, and Chile, and was to be broadcast to the world by a number of webcams. It was only at the point where the eclipse was ending, the moon moving on, that any evidence of Nibiru would be visible. This is because in the southern hemisphere where people stand upside down, where we in the northern hemisphere here see Nibiru more at the 4 o'clock position, in the southern hemisphere it's upside down, it's more at the 11 o'clock position. So I was watching all of this, and they had the cameras for 2 hours, as showing we're getting ready, because it was covering up where Nibiru was, and we were looking at the right-hand side where there was nothing. And then we had the totality, and then as it's moving off toward the right-hand side and going to show the left-hand side where Nibiru is, boop, the cameras went out. What? We're not interested in, in the exit, only interested in the... So... only private photos from the South Seas showed the world what you might have seen on the left-hand side. And quoting Zeta Talk, and it showed up. Nibiru showed up. But if you went to, like, Space Weather and all, NASA and all these places where they were displaying photos, only from the establishment. Private photos that showed Nibiru were not allowed. You had to search the Internet and pick them up. Okay. Quoting Zeta Talk on this matter, July 11th, 2010 solar eclipse, and I quote Zeta Talk. Remember, this is in the opinion of the Zetas. Nibiru was at a perfect angle for the dramatic appearance during the July 11th, 2010. The establishment, desperate to maintain the cover-up during such a well-watched event, was frantic, as a live feed from several sources had been promised. As anyone watching the event from several webcams noted, the lead-up to the event was played for almost an hour prior to the full eclipse. This was not a worry because the establishment knew that Nibiru would only make its appearance as the eclipse was waning, pulling away from the spot where Nibiru could shine without competition from the glare of the sun. The order went out to cut all cams as soon as the total eclipse was ended, and remarkably, worldwide, on all cams, this occurred. Is the world wired to a single switch? Was there no interest in the eclipse after the moment of totality? Those who watched from their own yards and took snaps of the eclipse as it waned knew the truth. So now we jump to May 20th to 21st, 2012, a solar eclipse. Many private photos were taken, so what emerged? To evade Nibiru, the moon had assumed an extremely tilted orbit, and this had been going on since 2004, this tilt with the hat down over one ear and up over the other. And the Zetas said it's because it's a crowded particle flow going in and out the middle of the Earth's equator. And to stay out of that, the Earth tilts its orbit, but twice a month at the new and full moon positions. It's where it should be. Otherwise, it's way too high over here or way too low over there. Okay. But during the full and new moon, the moon's orbit is found where expected. But the Earth wobble also was expected to interfere. We had a good wobble by 2012. The Earth wobble finds the globe pushed daily to the north when the sun is over the Pacific. Thus, the full lunar eclipse was not viewed in California as expected. The wobble interfered in the late afternoon in California, but was viewed in Texas more than expected. So the wobble was allowed to reveal some truth. The Earth wobble was verified by those watching who did not get an explanation for these viewing aberrations in North America. A distinct reddish glow was also captured at the 2 o'clock position in both Lubbock, Texas, and China. Quoting the observations, and I quote, "So according to the local Sacramento newspaper and media, the Sacramento area should experience 92% maximum of the solar eclipse, starting at 5:15 p.m., peaking at 6:32 p.m., and ending at 7:39 p.m. Yet here it is 30 minutes before the show, and the moon is nowhere to be seen in the California sky. What's going on here?" So people noticed. So there was a lot more for eyes to see, but the establishment just said, this back to shot, nothing to see here, move along. Okay, Zeta Talk has something to say on the matter, and remember, this is in the opinion of the Zetas. The May 20th to 21st, 2012 lunar eclipse was obviously assisted to some degree. The wobble was drastically reduced for the occasion, but even at this level of reduction, it affected visibility on the North American continent. When the sun is high over the Pacific, the globe is being pushed northward so the magnetic north pole of the Earth can evade the magnetic north pole of Nibiru. Thus, the full view of the lunar eclipse on the west coast of North America was south of what was expected. Texas was not expected to get a full eclipse view, but did. And where California expected to get the full eclipse view, it did not. This documentation of the Earth wobble has been wholly unexplained by the media or scientific bodies, nor has it even been addressed. End of the quote. So it could happen. The wobble could present some interesting, like I said, 300 miles off. Oh, I spotted it was supposed to go from Oregon to South Carolina, and what, it went from Alaska to Quebec, or something like that. Wouldn't that be lovely? Okay, during the October 23rd, 2014 solar eclipse, the moon and Earth were where expected, unimpeded by the daily Earth wobble, or a tilted orbit of the moon. This was true during the 2012 eclipse, where to avoid undue panic, the Council of Worlds decreed that the moon should be pushed into proper position and the Earth wobble stayed temporarily. But the truth about the presence of Nibiru in the vicinity emerged. Moon swirls of Nibiru crossed the sun in the vicinity of prominent sunspots, as more than one dramatic video showed, since it was seen from more than one cam and more than one location. It was not balloons or birds or an airplane. It was moving in the wrong direction to be a satellite, nor do satellites lump together and circle each other. Quoting observations. So in other words, they totally switched. One lunar eclipse in 2012, had the wobble exposed, and then because everybody scrambled together and said, oh, we got to get ready, by 2014 for the solar eclipse, they didn't do the wobble thing. They showed the moon swirls going round and round on the face of the sun. And people did notice, here we go. Not ISIS. Even at low altitudes, it couldn't take a minute and a half. Plus, that's not what it looks like. In other words, not ISS, the International Space Station. I saw the same dots from Louisiana I was looking at with a welder's hood. We couldn't figure out what they were. Starting at 4:26, you capture a plane traveling at the same general directions as the UFO. They called it a UFO object. The same appears to be smaller and much faster than those other objects. I suggest this rules out satellites. They were thinking UFO, but why the swirling? Somebody else says, I still maintain that these were not balloons tied together. The orbs seemed to be interacting with each other, and that they were flying around each other. And by the way, the moon swirls of Planet X do that exactly. Also, at one point, they form a perfect V going off to the right of the screen. If those were just balloons in the wind, the strings would have been all tangled together by then, and there would be no way for them to be able to perform a symmetrical V-shaped, just saying, end of the quotes. In other words, they were discussing all the possibilities and discarding them one by one. And these are smart people. Isn't the internet wonderful that we can find this stuff? Okay. Of course, the Zetas had a comment on the matter, and I quote, and remember, in the opinion of the Zetas, clearly not sunspots, as they were moving more rapidly than the highly visible and distinctive sunspots. These are also not airplanes or satellites caught by the cam, as the shape is wrong and changes during the passage. These are moon swirls in the tail of Nibiru, which has been wafting about between the Earth and Sun for years, caught in all the drama by the Soho cams and by amateur photographers such as Alberto in Italy. The moons are attracted to each other and cling to each other in the roiling swirl, and constantly changes as the moons are constantly on the move. So there was something, revealed in 2014. Now we jump to 2017, August 21st, 2017. Unsure what they might be dealing with, by August 21st, 2017, NASA et al. Had begun to issue disclaimers. The Daily Mail publicized one such disclaimer recently on July 28th, wherein NASA announced that it just discovered that the sun was larger than the moon. Oh, thus the coronal fringe of the sun can be seen on the edges of the moon. Quoting the Daily Mail, the researchers hope this year's upcoming eclipse, which will likely be the most watched solar eclipse in history, will provide a chance for scientists to verify the size of the sun. A group of scientists plan to study the eclipse's contact time, the time when the moon will cover the sun for a given location, to help them figure out the star's size. Oh, poor scientists. They just haven't had enough data up till now. You know, it's been a puzzlement. And then they'll come out with their pronouncements. Oh, it's bigger than we thought. And that's why you can see this and you can see that peeking around the moon. We just never noticed before. And so that's where we are for August 21st, 2017.
Well, I would say, though, with the amount of hype that I'm just kind of judging it by the media, because the media is pushing an agenda usually. And the amount of hype that's around this eclipse, not just the logistics of getting 30 or 10 to 20 million people driving around the country, I can see that, and then stopping and having, issues. But if it's not in the right spot, social media will go crazy. The internet will go crazy if it's not in the right spot, or if it's a partial when it should be a totality. That's, NASA and the Daily Mail, they can throw out, it's bigger than we thought it was. Well, how is that possible? All of a sudden, you don't know the size of our star in the middle of our solar system?
Yeah,
really?
Yeah.
NASA?
Yeah.
Don't we pay you or something?
Yeah. They are clearly worried that people are going to see things to the right and to the left of the moon. They're worried about that. And they've already got their asses covered. They're saying the sun's corona will peek around, and we'll be able to see the planets and the stars. Well, there's Mars, to the lower right, at the 4 o'clock position. Venus is further away at the lower right, down the line, and Mercury is over to the lower left. Enough that they can say, oh, you can see the planets. You say that we saw 3 different planets. And they're obviously preparing to do that. So what's left? The wobble would push the whole thing out of position so that totality doesn't happen where they said it would. Now, I don't know that that's going to happen. I do not know. But it's always something other than what you think it's going to be, because it has to be a surprise. If you're going to surprise the bad guys, you don't announce. So they're already listening to this broadcast, and saying, oh, what are we going to do? The path is wrong. Let's figure out an explanation for the path being wrong. Oh, dear.
Yeah.
What are they going to say, So that's it. We don't know.
Well,
and it's everything from the moon swirls dancing across the sun, to all kinds of games, but there's going to be a lot of private photos taken. Too many people. What are they going to do? Go out and confiscate cameras?
Live streaming on Facebook. Live streaming on any of the social media. People are going to be doing that. You can't stop that. What, are you going to shut down the internet? Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, they got another idea. Sorry.
Yeah, they could do that more readily when it was that one over the South Seas in Chile, because they had cameras set up in Chile, and they had guns at their heads, and it was turn it off, switch it off, that type of thing, or controlling the internet streaming. They could do that. But and there were very few people that were taking private photos, because you had to be on an island, you had to be under where the totality was, and you can just imagine that they probably were, sending the SWAT teams out there to try to grab the cameras. They didn't. But here, it's in such a populated area, and so many people are traveling in. Cameras on cell phones is so common. As anyone who's knows somebody who has a small child, oh look, I took a photo, isn't she cute? This kind of thing. They're snapping away all the time. So and you're right. Facebook, and it'll just go nuts. And they are not and cannot control it. And I'm asked a lot, why is the internet going to go down? Well, Facebook might go down. Because Facebook is part of the cover-up. The guy that runs it, but the internet itself. And the problem is that industry uses this, governments use this, military uses this, and it was designed to be able to keep flowing no matter what. Like water, if one route gets blocked, it flows around and goes in another direction. And it was designed that way so that it could get through no matter what kind of interference or cut lines or downtime. So it was built that way from scratch. So if they want to take it down, what doesn't run? Commerce doesn't run. The military, government, etc. And so they can't do that. But what they do try to do is control Twitter and Facebook. If they don't like what you're saying, they take down your account. But to just put a whole stop on it is they might try that. They might say, "Whoops, Facebook is having problems. Twitter is having problems." They might do that.
Local outages due to high traffic and high volume is the quote I foresee. Yeah, right.
Yes, that could happen.
Yeah, in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, we just don't know. I used to say what I would love to see is skywriting that says, Nibiru is real, go to the Zeta Talk website. But, it would just be claimed. Almost everything about Nibiru has got an excuse. The Earth wobble, where it's becoming obvious, that here comes an article saying that because the North Pole is free of ice, or nearly so, and the South Pole still has its ice, that the Earth is going, the top part is kind of wobbling to and fro. What? And then there was all the red dust in the atmosphere from the iron oxide in the tail of Nibiru, famous, for like the Jewish Exodus, which was the last passage. And here we have the rivers turning blood, and Revelation saying it's going to happen again, coming up, and blah blah. And so we know that the red dust is very obviously associated with this passage. And so here's NASA tossing up things into the Atlantic that are red dust and blue-green dust into the ionosphere, which is way up there, saying we need to study the winds up there, and this is how we're going to do it. We're going to puff this stuff up there, and then we're going to watch it. Okay. And then pretty soon we're hearing about auroras that are seen very far south and blah, blah, blah. And, well, sure enough, if people are going to start saying, wait a minute, I see something. Oh, no, that's just the dust in the ionosphere. And they're trying to cover themselves right and left. The excuses are USGS on earthquakes. Oh, no. It's just fracking. And people say, well, my house was shaking and the windows practically fell out. Oh, it's just your imagination. There was no earthquake. Oh, yeah. No. And this has been going on for a long time, dumbing down the earthquakes. We don't hear fireballs. Oh, the debris screaming in. It's space junk. Until finally people said, but no, it landed and it was a meteor. Well, then it's little asteroid pieces. And they just go on and on with the lies. So there's a little bit of truth coming out, particularly from Russia. They had a Russian astronomer, who said, that's not an piece of asteroid. It's trash in the tail of Nibiru. And they tend to get out the truth in little bits and pieces, But the cover-up is so strong, and it controls the media, and I just don't know what's going to snap it or how. There must be a threshold somewhere where the threshold is finally crossed, and everybody stands up and says, I'm fed up and I'm not going to take anymore, but we're not there.
Right.
People are walking around getting headaches, but they're not. We're not there.
Yeah. Well, they're not looking at the sky enough. I'll tell you that. Also with that many people around the world, but especially in the United States, and I think we're pretty well programmed not to look at anything outside of our field of view in this country. I think that's pretty much hammered into us from birth. But just get enough people like looking at the sky at the same time and discussing it, I think is a great thing. Even if we don't get a wobble proof, or if we don't get a capture, a public capture of Nibiru or any of its planets or its tail, at least people are all doing the same thing at the same time. They're like looking at the sky going, let's check this out. And that, I think, even if something's a little bit off, then the discussion will be like a match in a matchbook. Part of that awakening process is getting people all together and understanding that they're going through a change,
Yeah,
hopefully.
Very good point. There's going to be close to 20 million people that are going to be sitting around saying, well, did you notice that? That didn't seem right. And then somebody will throw something out. And they'll say, nah.
What's your watch say? What time is it? What time is it? It's supposed to be here by now. Where is it?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yes. That there will be discussion and ideas thrown out. And how are they going to squelch 20 million people chit-chatting amongst themselves? It will be hard to do. Or discussions afterwards.
Not going to happen.
They go back to their wherever they came from, and say, well, this is what I saw, and people around me saw it too, but, the news totally didn't say anything about that. Now, why wouldn't they? And, it's going to erase discomfort. That's so true. So this is all about the cover-up over the presence and pending passage of Nibiru, which is big, and for a while we had the hopes that Obama would come out and make the announcement. He really wanted to, but they kept trying to kill him. And then finally, as the Zeta said, he lacked courage when he had the opportunity during Jade Helm. And then we were going to do the prongs, and we had Planet 9, and oh, wait a minute, the sun has a binary, and and it was pronging away in 2016 all the way to the last fall, and then it stalled. And we're still saying, Planet 9, Planet 10, but we stalled. So now here we are, and we don't know what's coming next, but we shall see on the 21st where this arrives at. So now there's also a cover-up over aliens, and we had some remarkable disclosure, which is another one that has been chunking along. We've had people giving reports, people taking still photos, on occasion a video, but we have recently had from Peru some mummies discovered, and such a crowd of really top-grade scientists dissecting, and taking images and X-rays and all this, and I call it the Snake Man alien. It is just really, it's a blockbuster on aliens. You could deny it, I guess, but it's beyond photos and verbal reports and little videos, that could be altered, because this is the real thing.
This isn't that fake alien autopsy video from the mid-'90s. This is scientists live doing live work. I mean, and a lot of things are happening in Peru too. I mean, the blue alien was floating down there. That was a disclosure thing, and teleporting, and and skulls
it's
of
great.
Peru.
That's right. And these scientists give their names. In the past where we had the fake alien autopsy, nobody gave their names. There was, or you might have one individual who would be later found suicided or something, So, they're giving their names. They're from China and Russia and the U.S. and Europe and all over South America, and these are reputable scientists. And it's in other words, it's a big step up. Peru has unleashed this mother lode. Up until this time, we've had verbal reports, still photos, videos, and a handful of skulls to display as proof of the alien presence. Remember the Star Child and the guy, Lloyd Pay, or whatever his name was, finally died. He got DNA analysis. I don't think we ever got it out in the media, but that was clearly not a human skull, But people always say, oh no, it's a human. They mutated and they bound the skull and made it look weird. and they make excuses like that. Photos and videos can be altered. Verbal reports can be challenged. Oh no, that was just a dream, honey. And skulls can be claimed to be plastic fakes or distorted humans. In 2007, the tall walkers of California were captured on a video in someone's backyard. In 2008, a peeping Tom was captured in Nebraska looking in the window. Daddy thought he would catch whoever was peeking at his daughter, and there was a little alien. In 2011, the Skinny Bob video was released by MJ12, and all this only represents activity in the U.S. Then on August 2016, dramatic footage of a little blue alien at a gas station in Peru. We covered this on a prior, a Zeta report you and me did, Andrew.
Right.
Multiple witnesses,
Yep.
multiple video cams running, and the little guy was switching in and out of densities to escape being hit by a truck and floating at times. The pace had picked up. This was blockbuster. He was fluorescent. And he really did. You could see, they had, how are you going to shoot that one down? They had several cams, 20 different witnesses, and he would run away, and then he would float up in the air to escape. And then he got out in the street, and a big truck was coming, and he got mowed down. And then after the truck passed, he was on the opposite side. What happened? He went out of the density and came back into our dimension, to pick up the film again. It was so wonderful. Okay. The Gaia site began publishing in Peru. The Gaia site began publishing their amazing documentaries of the most recent discoveries detailing mummies discovered in caves in Peru on June 23rd of this year, 2017. Scientists from Russia, China, and the U.S. and elsewhere were in attendance. The anatomical analysis, X-rays, and DNA extractions were carefully detailed. The credentials of the team were impeccable. The mummies were covered in a white dust, later explained as silicon, used in the present day by mankind to dehydrate foods and medicines. So this is not old mummies either. I think the years it was about 10,000 years ago, I think. It wasn't that long ago, maybe not even. So it was like recent. So the thing that was most dramatic, because first there was an alien, and then it got into an alien curled up, like it had its arms wrapped around its knees and its head down on its knees. Then it had a couple standing side by side straight, and then they had a little baby, an infant. You could see that, sort of in a fetal position, curled up. So anyway, when they got to the couple, and that was the most dramatic, the woman looked pregnant. She had this bulging where the uterus would be on a human, right? And when they did the scanning, what you saw in there were 3 eggs. 3 eggs, not a baby. Not 3 wombs either. So plus the anatomy was similar to that of a snake. The rib cage, our rib cage goes halfway down, and this one was going all the way from the neck all the way to the pelvis, like a snake rib cage, which is every set of ribs rounds out. Then you get into the jaw, and when we had the first mummy, it was clear that it had no ears. That's not unusual for aliens. Sometimes they don't have external ears, but they have a hole. But here, the jaw could not masticate, meaning it could not chew. It could not chew. Well, snakes swallow their prey whole. Okay. So this was quickly followed by on Gaia, with a video detailing the autopsy of a couple standing upright rather than in a seated position. What was dramatic and explosive about this discovery was that the apparent hominid body contained eggs and showed no evidence of being able to chew. They were reptilian. The Peruvian Snake Man does indeed show many of the anatomical features of snakes, just as the base creature for man during genetic engineering was various apes. The base creature for Snake Man was apparently a snake. As is known, snakes can develop arms and legs, sharing many genetics with lizards and other reptilians. And I hark to a photo that I got, and it's on my website, and I'm showing it again on the YouTube tomorrow, of a little snake from China. The woman took the photo, and here sticking up in the middle of its back is a hand, boop, boop, with little fingers. Here we are. And it was like, oh my gosh, how can the snake have a hand? Well, the DNA is in there, and I'm not sure if the snake evolved to be lizards or the lizard, evolved to become a snake or what happened.
Right.
But it's not, they are related, and the evolutionary, I remember going to the Smithsonian years ago with my kids. And they have this room in which they have skeletons of everything, dolphins and birds and hung from the ceiling, and you can walk around and look, and you see the whole picture. You don't have to, and it really hits you. Fish, with their fins, then become arms and legs. There's some white whale down in Antarctica that it's got a name. It's very rare, and it gets up on the ice and runs, and people think it's a man because the legs, look like legs with feet, but it's a whale. It's just sort of dashing across the ice to jump in the water again. Our arms and legs, fins, all this kind of, it's just all, it's like we all evolved from the same blob, which we did, way, way back when. We all evolved from the same blob. So it should be no surprise that a snake would have arms and legs, and the like, because our lizards and et cetera have that, So then we get to the snake baby, and that's the third thing that they revealed. From the start of the Zeta Talk saga, the Zetas had explained that service to other souls, in other words, people that care about others, at least as much as they care about them, 50-50. Golden rule, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. That's the rule for service to other. And like Yoda was service to other, even though he was crusty and lectured people and, that type of thing. And it doesn't mean that you're sweetsy and give in to everybody and constantly, let other people take advantage of you. Not at all. It means you're concerned about the general welfare. And the Zetas said, reptilians are not evil and hominoids good. That's not the case. In most worlds, 95% become service to other and 5% become hardened in service to self, and they get hauled off to prison planets to live with each other until they're sick of it and realize the mistakes that they've made and decide to go in the other direction. And really what they said selfishness is immaturity, that they refuse to grow up like little babies. Mine, I want attention right now. It's mine, and they're very self-focused, and they never got out of that. That's what service to self is. So the Zeta said, dominant species, is warm-blooded. They assume hominoid, service to other, but we've got our evil people, and reptilian worlds, it's the same thing, 95%, just because they're cold-blooded, or maybe, okay. We, in our past, had a intelligent reptilian species before man was genetically engineered from apes, a type of raptor. And people were just finding these maps in the Ural Mountains. And who did this? A man, this was way before, any of the apes or Lucy or all this stuff, with early man. Well, it was a type of raptor and made maps and actually had irrigated crops, etc. And it goes beyond just that map. There are cases where they find encrusted in coal, which takes a heck of a long time to form, pieces of metal that are clearly smelted and manufactured by some intelligent species. Man is not first on this globe. Man is certainly not alone, So when we think of these snake men and say, oh, maybe they're cold-hearted, included is in these mummies is the baby, which if you look at it, you just want to pick it up and cuddle it. you know, and the likely died of the same health problems afflicting its parents. That's what the Zetas said. They said these were deliberately dusted with silicon dust, and the baby included, so that at this time in the awakening, we would be able to see this evidence that reptilian snake men were loving toward their infant and cared about their dead. And that's the end of my lecture. I think Andre, you wanted to talk about the Planetary Protection Officer.
Yeah, I was thinking about applying for it, actually. Can I get a reference from you?
You'd be great.
Do you think?
What?
Well,
yeah,
don't you think that a reference from Nancy Leader of Zeta Talk would be a way to get in with NASA, right?
Oh, that would do it. I mean, NASA
Right.
loves me. You can tell. You can tell they do.
Right,
You know, they always say. I always say go to my newsletter number 324 where it says when liars confess or something like that. The only person they've ever attacked, to my knowledge, is me. And they would have these hangouts or whatever, or these interviews, and they would say, "Don't listen to Nancy Leader. Don't listen to her."
Right.
Now, if I'm just a nutcase, why do they have to say that? You know, so it's Planetary Protection Officer, $187,000 salary, and right now, some woman has got it, and she's moving on to do something else, you know, in the government, and it's a scientist kind of a thing, and you worry about germs on stuff picked up on the moon or picked up on Mars coming back to Earth, or germs, you know, going back and forth from the Earth to the International Space Station and back down and this and that. And so basically, what does this person do? Say, Dad, take a little more bleach. Come on now. Where's that wipe?
Right.
You know, I mean,
Zap it in the microwave.
What's the job? It has nothing to do with aliens, but that's how it was built. It was built as this person is going to protect our world from contamination by aliens. Right. You know, and there's nothing about aliens in the description. And are we really trying to think that, you know, after SETI says they're sending out radio signals and, you know, and we keep looking for intelligent life, we're not sure. And I mean, one person worrying about germs, that's it. And, of course, it's so comical because the Zetas have addressed this in the past. People have said, Purple Haze, is it Jimi Hendrix, I think, has that song, Purple Haze.
Yeah.
And what's that all about? Because so many artists, musicians, etc., are contactees. And they said, oh, yes, he's not making this up because this is a technique we use. We get a bunch of contactees on a ship together, and one of them is coming down with the flu. We don't want everybody going back with the flu. In first place, there has to be the element of doubt, and then in the second place, you don't want to do that to your contactees, you know. Well, they fog everybody coming and going. They fog the room. They fog the people coming in. They fog the people going out. No germs, you know. So, and they fog themselves. It's a type of shower, you know. So, to reduce infectious agents, etc. But then they said, in our high-tech cities, if you know, we try to get used to Earth bacteria and viruses, and vice versa, when people come to live with us permanently, you know, we actually tell them to expect a little downtime because they're going to have to get used to some things. You know, your normal immune system will click in and develop an immunity to this stuff. But in any case, that goes on. And the Zeta said in 2008, we have 12,000 contactees, but in 2016 they were saying already half the populace, more than 3.5 billion, and rising, are already on spaceships chatting with aliens, and these aliens come in all sizes and shapes. I mean, they are weird, and the Zetas are just hominoids, but blobs and greasy toads, and ducks, and all kinds of life form. Anything that you can imagine that we have on Earth and more can be an intelligent species from another world coming in to chit chat with us, and give us counsel. And it can be a shock. I've fainted a couple times when I was presented with some of these creatures, and so I expect anything, and you won't be taken by surprise.
But on the flip side of that, Nancy, too.
Yeah.
I just want to say that on the flip side of that, discern everything. This is the time when you should, as a consumer of science or news about the universe, kind of dig into it a little bit. If it sounds weird, like JPL or NASA wants to get the actual size of the sun all of a sudden, doesn't that sound odd? That the moon is not in the right place consistently. Wouldn't that be something we should notice? Just check it out, research it. So.
Yes, good point. Discernment, yes, and that's on an increase. The establishment has a problem because if they don't start admitting that it's out there, that Nibiru is out there, and stop pussyfooting a little bit by a little bit, nobody's going to listen to them. The only people that are going to listen to them are those people that are too afraid to even think, But I'm presuming that more than half the populace thinks, and they're not the people that really run things, that run the world, that you would look to, to step forward and do something, are the ones that are going to say, "I'm not listening to you, boy. You lied to me. You lied to me right to the very end." And then if they encounter these people in their enclaves and the walls don't hold, which they won't, and their militias, turn on each other and shoot each other and allow the starving horde to come in and get everything that they've tucked away, which they will, how do you think you're going to be treated, by the common man when they realize that they've been lied to up until the very end? So get it out there. Tell the truth, if only to save your own stupid skin. Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm not digging you out of your bunker.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Bill Gates with your $20 million bunker, I'm not digging you out.
Yeah.
I'll be busy.
They are not going to fare well because selfish people surround themselves by other selfish people. And
Correct,
why should a militia that you hire treat you like a boss when you can't punish him? You can't go to you can't pick up the phone and dial 911. You can't call the court system. You can't throw that person in jail. You can't punish him in any way. And so now you have the militia is going to turn on the wealthy people, and why would they not? The other guys with the guns, the wealthy people are soft, and they think just because they have authority or wait a minute, I'm your boss, that's going to last about 5 seconds. So there's so many reasons that they're not going to fare well, and if they're listening to this broadcast, I hope you just get going, call your media outlet that you control, and tell the truth. I know they won't, but they should.
Exactly.
We have arrived at the end of our hour. We have arrived at the end of our hour.
Well, thank you.
6:02.
Thanks for all the information. We're looking forward to this eclipse. August 21st is coming up. So we had a partial lunar eclipse this morning. So that means 2 weeks from now. It's going to be on a Monday. So if you have plans to see the eclipse.
Yes, it would be. If that partial lunar eclipse was where expected, that is a sign that the moon is being pushed into position. That's a sign, but things could change. So exactly. And the next time we're on, Andre, you and I will talk about what emerged on August 21st.
We'll cover it.
Yes, we will.
Thanks for your time, Nancy. Be sure to check out the YouTube, which comes. The YouTube of this show will be out Tuesday.
Tomorrow. Yes, that's correct. Yeah, tomorrow.
Awesome.
Have a good night, everyone.